Hi. Um, Matthew Sherling asked me 9 questions for Cutty spot for an interview about my book, Tell God I Don't Exist. And I didn't realize it was a video interview, so I wrote down the answers and I'm going to read them, I guess, or make shit up that sounds like answers that I maybe wrote down. Let's give it a shot. The first question is, hi, how are you? Oh, wait, no. Hi, who am I? I'm Timmy Reed. I'm an endangered subintelligent hominid from Baltimore, Maryland. And I make writing, which is why this interview is happening. Next question. Uh, Two, tell those who may not know about your book, Tell God I Don't Exist. Well, Tell God I Don't Exist is a collection of stories that was originally published as part of my University of Baltimore MFA thesis. It's at University of Baltimore. Um, we have a creative writing and publishing arts program that I graduated from last summer. Um, and what that means is, in addition to creative writing, they have an emphasis on things like typography, book design, web design, publishing industry stuff. It's a really cool program, and if you're interested in an MFA that offers practical non-writing curriculum in addition to your typical MFA fare, I would urge you to check it out. But as part of the requirement, every student has to create a book. So you have to write it, design it, all that jazz. And this grew out of that. There'll be an ebook coming out this spring, which should have some extra super cool bonus stories that you guys can check out. Um, in terms of the actual content of the book, um, a lot, it's I don't know how to say. A lot of the stories had already appeared in other publications, but I wrote a bunch of new stuff too. And it was all material that shared a kind of thematic element that had to do with animals and nature and the universe and all that kind of stuff. Um, it was a lot of stuff from research books and like late night, early morning binging on nature programs and nature documentaries. I don't know. They all influenced the shape of it and sort of the ideas behind it. I wanted it to be a thin book. I wanted it to be mostly very short stories, mixed in with some longer ones. I wanted everything to be in first person. The I and the we POV felt critical to the kind of questioning nature of these stories. I don't know. Think like Elizabeth Bishop's poem in the waiting room. That was a big influence. Um, I don't know. But it was all stuff that I thought was going to deal with what I kind of think of as big question stuff, like big, large, unwieldy thoughts about existence and other kind of silly or dumb things to think about that you can never really get to the bottom of or truly understand. I don't know. I like thinking about all that stuff, and I wanted to pack those kind of feelings into small moments and stories where there was magic, stories where there wasn't magic, stories where you weren't sure if there was magic. Um, So that's what the book is. I don't know. My opinions about what it is probably would change if you asked me on another day. But that's what it feels like today. And that's what I think what it felt like when I was writing it. But, you know, I don't know. It was also a lot of other stuff. Too. Books are complex things, I think, if you're doing them right. Anyway, what's my approach to writing? This is number 3. That's a tough one. I think for me, it depends on the demands of the project that's at hand. I like to think of myself as kind of like a secondary element. I'm sort of helping push the stories along in a sort of gross, kind of gropey, clumsy, embarrassing, human kind of way. I'm just playing around with the stories and the words until I've written something that I want people to read. And once I have an idea of what the project should be, then my approach to it just sort of comes naturally at least when it's working the way like I want it to be. Like the stories sort of, or the approach is kind of dictated by the needs of the task at hand, and that might mean any number of things. I pace a lot. That's a big part of it. I ride my skateboard. I take a lot of breaks. I smoke too much. I look in a lot of books. That all is somehow part of the approach, I guess. I never think of the writing as sacred. That's a big part of it, I think. I always think of it as sort of an approximation, something to get us closer to, I don't know, whatever ineffable ideas that I had that made me want to write it. So something that makes us get closer to that. I don't think of it as anything. I don't think of the work as sacred, so I kind of like to fuck with it a lot, and just sort of have fun. I don't know. Does that answer the question? Approach feels like a weird. Makes it seem like we're going to a mountain, and that's not the way writing feels to me. So it's kind of an odd question to answer, but I'm gonna stick with that one. Okay, question number 4 is how much improvisation and how much editing goes into my writing. What did I write down about this last night? The things I wrote down last night, none of them really make sense when I go back to read them, so I'm just kind of bullshitting. But I think that the amount of improvisation or editing, I mean, it's all improvisation, right? Even the editing. I mean, they're all improvised thoughts, right? But it all depends on the demands of the project. Again, it's like I just finished writing a novel that took me 3 years, and that had a ton of editing. But then sometimes I'll write something really short, and maybe it'll have like little to no editing. Or sometimes I'll write something really short, and it'll take me forever, just agonizing over the whole thing. So I don't know. I think a big part of it is like managing my mood, sort of, when I write and edit. I think maybe that's a big part of the approach question, too. Like, making sure I feel like in the right frame of mind or in body and whatnot. John Gardner compared young novelists to a racehorse, and I like that idea right now. I don't know, but yeah, editing a lot of it when it's needed and less of it when it's not. Um, Tell us about one living and one dead writer that inspires you. Oh, this is a fun question. Um, so for Russell Edson's got to be almost dead. I think he was born in the mid 30s. So he's going to be my living writer. If you don't know who Russell Edson is, go look him up. He's awesome. He writes these awesome little narratives. They're called prose poems. I mean, I guess he calls them that, or his publisher does, or critics or fans or whatever people do, and people call him like the godfather of prose poetry, whatever that means. I just think of them as little stories, but I call everything stories, just to make my life easier. Um, anything anything with a narrative, I call a story. Um, but anyway, he's really great. They're creepy and they're beautiful, and they always make me feel kind of like that folk tale where the blind guys are touching the elephant and they all think that it looks different. I don't know. His stories have feel kind of like that, or like you were uh, maybe I don't know. I don't know. They feel like you're just getting at something that's much bigger and this really tiny little thing. They're great. On the back of my book, I was super psyched. Jessica Blau gave me a blurb where she said something that was awesome, but also embarrassing for me because it just to have my name in the same sentence as Russell Hudson's is so cool, but also makes me blush. But she said that if Russell Hudson and George Saunders had a baby, which I would not want to see what that baby looks like. She said he'd grow up and write like me or like the writing in the book. I forget the blurb's on the back of the book. Buy it for the blurb, but but anyway, I was super flattered because he's one of my favorites. And if you don't, I don't feel like enough people know who he is. So if you don't read Russell Edson, read Russell Edson. And the dead writer I want to talk about is Richard Hughes. Richard Hughes wrote A High Wind in Jamaica, which is so cool. Really kind of creepy, scary, messed up book uh, about these kids captured by pirates. It's an adventure story. He was a Welsh writer, um, and uh, got sort of a magical realism. I hate that phrase, but a magic vibe to it, and it's just cuts like a knife. The kids are scarier than the pirates. It's just it's excellent. If you haven't read A Highway in Jamaica, read it. Richard Hughes, awesome. Uh, okay, let's answer these more quickly, I guess. What's the first album you remember getting? I remember getting for Christmas as a kid. It was a cassette. This is the '80s. Um, uh, in my stocking, I think I got a boombox, and then in my stocking, I had to get some cassettes to play with it. And my parents got me the Fat Boys cassette. I got the Fat Boys, and I got DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince's. He's the DJ, I'm the rapper, which had like Parents Just Don't Understand, and I think like Nightmare on My Street, and all those classic early Will Smith jams on it. Who's my favorite rapper and why? I don't like. I hate telling people what my favorite anything is because it always changes. My opinions on everything always change very quickly. Uh, but and this is such an issue. Favorite rapper. This seems critical. Um, well, I would like. My response last night. Oh yeah. Well, that works. I think if I could sound like any rapper, I would like to sound like Slick Rick. Like when I talk to people, I would like to sound like Slick Rick, and when I do readings, I wish I sounded like Slick Rick instead of myself. So that's not really my favorite, but I'm sticking with that answer. How would I describe my relationship to the internet? Oh God, I think what I wrote on here is really long. I don't know. I was kind of late to the internet. I didn't get an email address till 2001. I don't think. Now I don't know. I think about it too much. I think maybe like we aren't we all sick of talking about the internet. I kind of feel sometimes like we're all talking about what the internet means to us so much. When well, I don't know. Who cares? It's kind of like you ever go to the awesome party and you're at the awesome party, but then you get stuck in like a conversation with a bunch of people who just keep talking about how awesome the party is, and you're kind of like, shut up, you're ruining it. Don't talk about the party while we're in the party. Um, Maybe it's like that. Is how I feel about the internet. Um, I don't know. It's the internet's really cool, and I love that it allows me to do stuff like this and to find an audience for things that I write. I remember before I was using the internet uh, and I was writing stuff, the it was much more difficult to I don't know connect with people or to I don't know to find out when you had connected with people. Yeah, I used to make a lot of zines. I still sometimes make zines, but I used to make a lot of them and sell them and leave them places and things. And sometimes you'd hear from people in the mail, but not nearly, not like you do now with the social media websites and the blogging and all the crazy stuff. Anyway, yeah, the internet, it's something. What's my worldview in one sentence? It's I know nothing, so show me things before I die, or I want to go see things. I know nothing, and my life is short, and so let's get going. Let's make it good. Also, be nice to people. It's worth it. It's, it's be nice to people. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Matthew, for asking me these questions. Um, I hope that was what I was supposed to do. All right. Bye.